Yeah, no.
And let me know when you can see us.
I can see it. I can see us right
All
now.
right.
Oh, I got it. Nice.
Yeah, it runs a little bit behind, right?
Yep.
Or is it?
Greetings, true believers. It's time for Spoiler Country's Make Mine Marvel TV.
Yeah, no, and the theme tunes
Live
of the
from the
team
Smith
tunes.
Tower, high over Seattle, with
Yeah.
your hosts, John, Kenric, Sumner, and Casey. Welcome to Make Mine Marvel TV.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I think I need to speed this one up, the live stream.
Spaghetti.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Here.
Talking
do it.
about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is
Season finale.
season finale. So welcome on board. This is Spoiler Country, if you didn't know. And this is part of our whole series of Make Mine Marvel TV. We're doing the
Brilliant
season
name.
finale.
I love it.
Yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 6. This is going to be an amazing thing. Andrew, I wanted to ask you a question. You came up with
course,
using
mate.
Make Mine Marvel TV. I was hoping maybe you can give people a history lesson on why Make Mine Marvel TV.
For sure. And you've got to remember, I'm just pulling this out of the ether without. So, if anybody there is checking this for accuracy, I'm not saying that what I'm about to tell you is 100% accurate, but the spirit of what I'm saying certainly is accurate.
It's 1,000
Right?
times accurate, people.
In the early years of the Marvel Universe, during the nascent Marvel Universe, let's say that the Marvel Universe, as we know it, is pretty much created in the very early 60s, with Fantastic Four 1, and then with, Spider-Man and Amazing Fantasy, etc.
Oh,
Started reading those books in about 1966. Yeah, not that long after their inception. Thanks to my granddad pops buying me those books, right? Because the books he'd brought back from the war weren't Marvel because they didn't exist in that form. Then they were like DC's and also Fawcett's and stuff
Timely.
like that, and the early Timely books. So he did bring back Captain America's the original incarnation, right?
oh, that's cool.
Anyway, so during that period of time, one of the things that really contributed to the growth of the Marvel universe was that universal voice that Stan Lee gave all of the books, because he scripted all of the books, and they're all that kind of 60s hip lingo that Stan spoke in, and it's the voice of those jazzy voice of those characters which really sets them apart. A voice that you hear very clearly if you ever watch the original Spider-Man animated show.
Yeah, Spider-Man is Amazing
67.
Friends.
No, the one that's 15 years before that.
Oh.
Spider-Man is Amazing Friends is awesome, but that's an early 80s show.
That's right.
Yeah?
That's what I
The
grew up
original.
on.
Yeah, what's what you grew up on?
Yeah.
What I grew up on, age 4, was Spider-Man 67, which is one of the animators involved was Ralph Bakshi, the guy who went on to
Lord of
do
the
Fritz
Rings, the
Cat,
Hobbit.
and all of that. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And it was made in Canada with this brilliant voice cast. The guy who played Spider-Man Peter Parker was called Paul Soles, and he still plays. He still acts to this day. If you've ever seen a Edward Norton film called The Score, which has Edward Norton in it and Marlon Brando, he has like an old guy who's a security guard who's like a mentor figure. The Edward Norton character has, and that's Paul Soles, the original Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that voice, if you listen to that 66 show, the 67 show, the animation is very limited, but the voice tracks and the music are amazing.
Yeah.
Because it has this incredible jazz soundtrack. And it's where the famous Spider-Man theme comes from.
Yep.
Yeah. Spider-Man. That's from that show. But also the voice acting is great. And to this day, the way the characters speak in that show is how I hear those characters in my head. J. Jonah Jameson, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, whatever. With that kind of voice. The other thing Stan was brilliant at doing, he was a natural huckster, natural salesman. He created essentially this fiction of the Marvel bullpen, where all the Marvel writers and artists were in one place at one time. In reality, there was only a small handful of people who actually worked in the Marvel office. There was Stan himself. There was Saul Brodsky, who's the production manager. There was Flo Steinberg, who was Stan's secretary. But most of the artists, and then ultimately other writers, worked outside. Very few people worked in-house. But he created this fiction. And then he had several mantras that he created in that time. One of which, of course, is the one we all know, is Excelsior. Yeah?
Right.
his clarion call, right? And then he came up with exactly the same time. He came up with the concept of calling Marvel fans true believers, like they were people who'd seen the light and were in some kind of club. Yeah. And he set up a Marvel fan club called the Merry Marvel Marching Society. And then later on in the 70s, I had another one that was set up by Jim Steranko called FOOM, Friends of Old Marvel. And Stan was always doubling down on all of these terms. But he gave out, and he created a whole bunch of of kind of awards that people would get, like in the UK, right? We've got the the honours list, we call it. So you can be knighted. If you're knighted, if I were to be knighted, I'd be Sir Andrew Summer. That's never going to happen, by the way. And then you get a bunch of other kind of medals and awards that they're all going to give out twice a year.
God, everybody's breaking up a lot.
Yeah, everybody's breaking up on the. Is this on the YouTube version, mate?
No, on my Zoom. Like now I'm getting the internet is unstable. Great.
It looks fine to me here.
Oh, good. Good.
It's good to me too, mate. Do you know, to me.
Oh, good. Yeah. If it's good for you guys, then we'll get it.
Yeah, it looks solid for everybody, actually. Yeah. So basically, Stan came up with this concept of if everybody, all the books having their own letters pages, and everybody being recommended, encouraged to correspond. And he created all of that fan and editorial interaction, and he came up with the idea of recognizing whenever people spotted like a continuity error, of which there were loads, of course. He came up with the idea of the no prize, classic Marvel thing. Oh, you've earned a no prize for that. And then he used to give credits for people who'd, and I can't remember these terms, it'd be like, but there'd all be acronyms like you've won a no prize and whatever. But around that time, he created Stan's Soapbox, which was, in every month, he'd have a mini editorial column that ran in all the all the letter columns. And it would be the same one throughout all the issues each month. And he came up with this mantra, make mine Marvel. Yeah. And that was a regular Stan Lee promotional saying for years and years throughout early Marvel in the 60s and 70s. It was make mine Marvel. When Marvel were kind of on the back foot and they were smaller, but much more creative than DC, in the 60s and 70s. What a lot of people don't know is that originally Marvel, basically DC dominated comics distribution, and Marvel had to use essentially the same distribution outfit as DC, and were only allowed a cap on the number, or only allowed like something like eight titles a month. That was it. So they could never expand beyond that. So they were always on the back foot, and that's why Stan had all these ploys and strategies for making Marvel like a club. Yeah, and Make Mine Marvel was a big part of that. So if you're an old-time Marvel fan like myself, the term Make Mine Marvel, that joyous kind of embracing of Marvel being our thing, that's a very well-known thing. And now, of course, Marvel is kind of all-consuming and all-encompassing. It's still as cool, but like Feige and all those guys at
this thing is driving me nuts.
In this all-dominant force, do you know what I mean? So hence the fact that this strand, we call it Make My Marvel TV, because it plugs directly into that hardcore sense of Marvel fandom, which all of us share. And of course, it is one of the main components of what makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe so successful. The fact that they respect that and truly understand the fans, as we'll go on to talk about when we talk about this episode, which is this whole season, I think, of Falcon Winter Soldier has been yet another example of how Marvel truly understand what's going on. Yeah.
So let's just get right into it. Thank you for the history lesson. I think people see Make My Marvel TV and they might, I always kind of wondered where exactly it was from. I'll be honest. I watched the old Spider-Man. I remember watching that one, but
it's great. It's got a great title sequence, really brilliant title sequence.
Yeah. But getting into Falcon Winter Soldier, this is it's the season finale, most likely the series finale, which really bums me out because this episode, Sam picks up the mantle of Captain America. And I got to tell you, he's every bit of fucking Captain America as Steve Rogers.
Oh, man.
And he looked amazing. And I didn't know Anthony Mackie could pull it off the way he did, but he freaking, it's like he became a whole different person.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the whole,
He looked the
the whole
part.
show is about his growth into that,
His
that
growth,
person
yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
And his acceptance of becoming that character.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's many things we're going to talk about. One of the things I really loved, and I'm sure this that's a spark with all you guys, is how comic accurate his costume was. I couldn't get over that. That must be one of the most comic accurate versions of a costume jumping from the page to the screen that I've seen. And I think part of it is educating an audience over 10 to 12 years about how comic book costumes work. So I doubt very much that if the first ever Marvel movie they made was Captain America, Sam Wilson's Captain America in the present day, that he'd put that costume on, because I think they'd be worried that people would be totally distracted by it. But once you've lived with that lexicon of what the Marvel unit, with that style guide of what Marvel is for 12 years on screen, suddenly you can have a guy walking around dressed like that, having normal conversations with people, and the audience isn't going, "What is he wearing?" You know, it's. I just thought it was amazing. I think he looked so cool. He looked great.
The costume was amazing. It was awesome.
Yeah, he looked perfect. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people talking about how much they didn't like it. I was like, how could you not like it? What didn't you like about it? You know?
Yeah, what's not to like?
Like freaking naysayers, man.
Do you know what it strikes me every week, by the way, when we have these conversations, is you boys are clearly dialing into, not this isn't a criticism, by the way, I'm very interested in it. You boys are clearly dialing into some level of fan negativity that I just don't see. Because whenever I hear you guys, all I've seen is positive stuff about it. And I'm now wondering if I have my social media set in such a way that basically every time I've seen somebody talking fucking bollocks, I just go, right, I'm not looking at that, bang. So I never see it again. You know what I mean? And so therefore, I've just seen a wave of positivity about it all, and people going, oh God, it's amazing. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure that negative fan side exists. Of course it does, because it exists everywhere. But I think, they're fucking wrong. Let's put it that way. That's the short version of what could have been a very long diatribe. You know what I mean?
Totally wrong. It's just weird. I hate to say it this way, but I feel like it's only because of who it is. It's not because of anything beyond that. What's up, Casey? You're like raising your hand. Casey, go ahead.
I have the finale in that I don't think that Carly got enough of an end story. I think that there could have been a lot more that they could have done with her. So that kind of left me underwhelmed. However, with the whole, I thought it was great. I thought the entirety of the episode was really well done, and the series itself was well done as well.
Casey, I've got an observation about that, mate, or rather a piece of information that I came upon this week, which you guys might have also seen. And by the way, my personal response to that is, I kind of agree, but also for me, the Flag Smashers and Carl, as brilliant as the actor who played Carly is, by the way, and she's an incredible actor. For me, the whole Carly business and the whole Flag Smashers thing was the MacGuffin of the whole show for me. It's just the thing that's powering the plot, and I personally wasn't interested in what that was. To me, it was almost like the equivalent of the glowing case in Kiss Me Deadly and Pulp Fiction, right? I just basically didn't really care about that, so it didn't bother me that it was undercooked. But in its own terms, I think your instincts are bang on, because I read this week that as filmed in its original incarnation, there was a whole subplot running through the Flag Smashers thing about them dealing with a virus that had been released upon the world. And that's why one of the things that they're stealing in the first episode is vaccines, right? And that basically, given the fact that they ended up completing the shooting and editing and were watching it during this catastrophic pandemic, I think Marvel thought, oh shit, that's a bit near the knuckle, and so those scenes are actually filmed, but they're gone, and so therefore there's a weird hole in the center of the Flag Smashers narrative, and that's absolutely what you were sensing, mate. The fact that it's not designed to have that much of a hole in it. There was something else going on, and you know how there was that lady in the first episode that she was really moved about that lady's death and all that kind of stuff. That was tied in with this virus and whatnot, and that character is much more significant in the original script. But all of that's been rearranged and taken out, and I think that's why you're sensing like something feels incomplete to you, because it is, mate. And I would say that is fantastic movie viewing instincts, Casey. That's very good. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way, because the minute it came out of my mouth, I thought, fuck, that sounds patronizing as fuck.
No,
I've come back to you on my ear going, well done, son. That's good. No, it's fucking brilliant. No, good job. Good job, man. Yeah, no, absolutely.
See, I see what you're saying there, but I also feel like her story doesn't end when she dies, right? Her story ends really at the end of Sam's speech.
Yeah, wow.
Because if it wasn't for her, Sam never that speech wouldn't have happened. Like that whole speech he gives, which is whoever wrote that speech should get an award. That speech is phenomenal.
He did tie it up well.
Yeah. And his delivery was great on that whole thing.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. The speech was great. And by the way, at this point, I think there's one person that I don't think we've really talked about. Spellman, right?
Yeah.
Who has done just the most amazing job. Yeah. And I think one of the things they got absolutely right with this is that a lot of the people on the creative side of this show are African Americans, and it fucking shows, because there's a level of like authenticity to it all. It's not just a bunch of fat white dudes putting words in the mouth of African American actors. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which never rings true. Do you know what I mean? In the same way we had a bunch of dick swinging dudes like making the Wonder Woman film, it just wouldn't work in the same way. You really feel the female presence in that movie, and I think it's the same with this. I think there's a level of authenticity that it has, which I really responded to. But I think Malcolm Spellman, who's done an amazing job, and I was very pleased to hear the fact that he is now developing a Captain America 4 movie that he is going to actually write the script for. So I thought that's brilliant, because another Captain America movie, but with Sam and Bucky, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
it's going to be phenomenal. Yeah,
I'm excited for that.
I really hope. I think one of the shining stars of the show for me was Isaiah Bradley. Right?
Oh, so good.
Love his character. I really want them to do something with his backstory. Like I'd love to see his backstory sometime. Yeah. I mean, because it's also such a period piece with him and not affect anything else, because all of his stuff was secrets. It's not going to affect anything else.
Yeah. No, so you could go back and do any of it. You could do a whole other show, which is set in the Korean War, which is the Isaiah Bradley story. Absolutely no problem. You could do it. Oh, right. Do you want to hear my latest thoughts about Steve Rogers? I had a kind of brainwave the other day. And so here's my feeling about what Marvel could do with Steve Rogers going forward. And it really ties into Loki, right? Because Loki is all about the time agency or whatever they call it. And they're really starting to fuck around with the timelines. Well, who else has been fucking around with the timeline? Steve Rogers. Because he goes back in time and he's putting all the Infinity Gems back and whatnot. The Infinity Stones back. Sorry to use a movie name. Yeah. So I think at any point, we've talked about you could go back and you can see him in his 50s and all that kind of stuff. You could also... the time agency or whatever it's called allows you to visit any of those versions of Cap dicking around in the timeline. So you could even have, Chris Evans as he is now or will be in 5 years' time just turning up like, hey man, this is me from 1952 and Owen Wilson here is telling me I've got to come and do this with you, Bucky and Sam. You need to help me right now. That is an endlessly open door for Chris Evans to come back at any point, and that's why they haven't actually given him a definitive end, even as an old man, because they might use old Steve. Yeah. They want to keep their options open, don't they? They've completely kept it opaque as to what has happened with Steve, because it just gives them the ability to do something with it later if
they get the appropriate truckloads of cash over to Chris Evans.
That's right, exactly.
Then he will come back
when they install that swimming pool and drop all the cash into it. Yeah,
back that up.
He's there doing the backstroke in it. Yeah.
He's Uncle Scrooge. Right. Big Scrooge right there.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Because we talked about in our first episode that we had expected to see a funeral for Steve Rogers in this series.
Yeah.
You never saw it. The only thing we ever got was, he's on the moon. Which
that's right. Which is kind of leaning into the whole Nick Fury in the comics thing, the unseen, isn't it? That's and or the Inhumans. Let's not mention the Inhumans because the Inhumans is a terrible concept.
Can you guys explain the moon thing? Because I didn't. I
didn't get
that
it.
Reference. I understood that reference earlier in the show when they brought it up, but where does it ever say in other forms of media that he's on the moon?
No, so basically, here's what I think. You know, Johnny, if you disagree, please.
Oh,
please
I have a theory of what that is about.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so I'll say my thing first, and then let's get into your thing.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Because real quick, I think it's referencing the fact that the moon turns up in Marvel lore in 3 different ways, right? One is it's where the Watcher is based, Uatu, right? Okay. Number 2, it's where the Inhumans are based. I don't think that's got anything to do with it. But number 3, and I thought, like, basically, I think they're just having fun, by the way. But the reason they mention that is that's what happens to Nick Fury in the comics. So original Caucasian Nick Fury, the way they dealt with the fact that essentially they went with the ultimate version of Nick Fury, who is Sam Jackson. You know, that so what they did was they have original universe Nick Fury, the Caucasian Nick Fury. They had him have a son who was like African American, and then they had him take over from his dad, Nick Fury Jr., who everyone just calls Nick Fury. And the original Nick Fury, through one thing and another, ends up killing the Watcher and replacing him, and he becomes a version of Nick Fury for quite a long time. He's back to being Nick Fury now, but he becomes a version of Nick Fury called the Unseen, and he basically takes the place of the Watcher, living on the moon and overlooking the whole Marvel universe. And I thought they just, for the sake of comedy, doing a riff on that, because they know hardcore Marvel fanboys like ourselves are going to spend 10 minutes talking about it on their podcasts and YouTube channels. That would be my guess.
Yeah. And we're talking about how David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury is on the moon. And
that's right. Yeah. I would love David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury to turn up in the Marvel universe, by the way. I'd absolutely love him to be in. I'd love him to be in Spider-Man and, No Way Home. Can you imagine that if Nick Fury turned up? That would just be so cool. Singing a German pop song. That would be brilliant.
Oh my gosh.
So my thing is this. I think
I was so excited.
Go, Casey.
I'm sorry. I was so excited for that made-for-TV movie when I was a kid, when it came out, the Nick Fury movie featuring David Hasselhoff.
Yeah. So was I. I was really excited until I watched it. He looked
embarrassingly excited. I was like, "This is going to be awesome."
He looked really good, though. Hasselhoff, in terms of playing original Nick Fury, he looked amazing. He looked brilliant. That's why he should turn up in one of these multiverse things. He still looks good now. Yeah. He could totally play him. Yeah. Kenric, come on, mate. I'm itching to hear your theory.
I think what they're going to do is Original Sin that came out in 2014, where they everybody was on the moon. Somebody shot a Watcher, killed a Watcher.
That's how he becomes the Unseen. Yeah. It's Original Sin. That's how it happens. Sorry,
this is also the scene. This is also the premises of Jane Foster becoming Thor.
Yep.
So all of that is set up in Original Sin. So and everything begins
we don't
on the moon. What's that, Johnny?
We know Jane Foster is becoming Thor.
We already know Jane Foster is becoming Thor. The fact that they're talking about certain people on the moon, I think that's the storyline they're getting ready to set up. Something similar to it. They might not do exactly that storyline, but something similar. That's for sure.
Yeah. See, I thought it was just an Umbrella Academy reference. They're just talking about the Umbrella Academy being on the moon.
Yeah. I think that's probably the least likely one of those.
It's still a theory.
But I still like it. Yeah, sure.
They murdered Uatu, the Watcher.
Yeah.
Uatu. I don't know what some of the words, some of the names they come up with are so funny.
They're just so good. They're just so good. Of course, he was just the Watcher for a long time. You know, I think it's somebody like Roy Thomas who came up with. I think it was Roy Thomas who came up with his name, as it so often was, because it was left to Roy Thomas in the 70s to like a lot of the things Stan created with a broad brush. Kind of Roy Thomas then went in and kind of made sense of it. The most famous one being when Thor appears, he's literally just the alter ego of Don Blake. Don Blake. The kind of the doctor with a limp slams his like stick down because he finds Thor's hammer and can turn himself into Thor, pretty much like Billy Batson can become Captain Marvel / Shazam.
Yeah.
But then suddenly they start giving Thor this extended life. And in the end, it was Roy Thomas who did this whole explanation for where Don Blake comes from. And his whole explanation for Don Blake was that at a certain point, Thor got too big big for his boots. So Odin, to teach him humility, turns him into Don Blake, and he's got to live an entire human life as a guy who's afflicted with a disability, not afflicted, has a disability, and that basically he's got to live this humble human being's life in service to other people as a doctor.
That's a great concept.
It's a great. I mean, it's a really brilliant. That's one of the best retcon origins of all time, I think.
Yeah.
And then basically at the point where Odin thinks, okay, yeah, he's proven himself enough. That's when he allows Don Blake to find the hammer. And the reality is that Don Blake never actually really existed. Yeah. Is what ultimately comes out.
Yeah,
and then at that point, when you get to that version of the origin, he stops being Don Blake altogether. But it's really clever, right?
What did you guys think of the Isaiah Bradley statue scene?
Great. Absolutely. I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't anticipate that. And I thought that was an emotion. What I loved about this episode was the last 20 minutes, the action's over, like halfway through. The last 20 minutes is all emotional beats.
Yep.
I just thought that was phenomenal. There was so many things. I loved the whole Captain America Museum statue sequence. I just thought that was brilliant.
When I was watching it, I thought to myself, well, and I messaged you guys. As soon as I saw the Isaiah statue and the emotional aspects of what happened between Sam and Isaiah and Isaiah's grandkid, and you're just like, these type of scenes is why Marvel does so well in the movies. You know what I mean? They capture more than the person that just wants to see somebody getting beat up. You know, they capture a whole spectrum of people. There's other companies out there that are trying to do this, and they're missing this piece. And I don't think you can get here without all of the foundation building that Marvel has done. Because now they talk about, I mean, they went through the whole thing and they had the whole race conversation throughout this whole series to get to that scene to make it that powerful. You know what I mean? It wasn't just, here you go. It's just brought out, hey, by the way, we gave you this statue. No. It was like all these emotional beats happened before they even get there. It was really good.
And that whole scene wouldn't have been as powerful had we not had the 10 years buildup of Captain America, Steve Rogers, right?
Yeah.
That buildup, making that museum, making what he stands for the country, then to find out about Isaiah Bradley and what he meant and did, that makes that whole scene have so much more of an emotional resonance that a lot of other, like you mentioned, a lot of other people making movies don't have that foundation, or they're not trying to build that up to make that type of a scene hit that much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really loved that scene, and in fact, during that whole sequence of emotional resolutions, they did a bunch of great work. Which to me, this episode was filled with some of the greatest. I've loved every episode of this series, but this climactic episode was just filled with so many great beats.
Yeah,
I mean, I almost immediately watched it twice. I don't normally do these things, but I enjoyed it so much. The emotion. Sorry, the reason I paused then is because for some reason on my version of this screen that I'm looking at, Kenric and Casey kind of just flipped positions in the line.
Someone raised their hand.
And it was like I was looking at Kenric, I blinked, and then you turned into Casey, and it's like, whoa, what's going on?
You can't you guys, just moving forward, don't raise your hand on the app.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, dude. You didn't know. I didn't know either. It's a learning experience for all of us. It changes the order of everybody as soon as you do that.
Is that what it does?
Yeah.
Is that what it does? That is fantastic.
So
is that
Casey became Johnny.
Does the same go for all of us?
Yeah. We all.
Can we try to see what happens?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it just stop shuffling people around?
No. On the app itself.
On the app itself. Oh, so okay, got it. That's just brilliant. What's going on? That's phenomenal. That's just phenomenal. So anyway, yeah, so the emotional beats are great. I really love the semi-rehabilitation of John Walker. And I saw somebody online going, what, was supposed to like this guy now? But as I've said all along, he's not the bad guy. He is not the good guy either. Right. And that's the whole point of what John Walker is. John Walker is a career government assassin, right? Yeah. And he's got PTSD, number one, which is obvious. And he's spontaneously taken the serum and it's fucking with his head to a degree, number two. But he's also not an out-and-out villain, as we see. He's career military. He's got a nice balanced wife who kind of keeps him grounded. And the whole point is not that he's done all this heinous shit and then suddenly he's a good guy. He's like, he wasn't fucking, you know, the thing is, the guy didn't get prosecuted for what he did. He was working for the government. He was taking those people out. He just did something that Captain America wouldn't do.
That's right.
So the whole, and of course, if you know your comic, Captain America, he is, however, the US agent, dark Captain America, if you will. But what Captain America would be if he was just a fucking soldier whose job it was to take people out, which is what John Walker is. And so the fact that you see his wife there again is grounding him about, you're not supposed to hate him. Yeah. You're not supposed to be wildly in favor of the more extreme choices he's done either. He's not a simple, straightforward black and white character. And that's what I really like about him. And that's what I really like about Wyatt Russell's performance. And I think the way they've positioned him is brilliant, because he's actually, because Wyatt Russell's a very likable guy, isn't he? And actually, there are moments in that final episode where you see, and you've seen him before, but you see bits of the Wyatt Russell likability come out. Like he's joking around with Bucky, and Bucky's relationship, like he had with Sam, which is a bit more spiky, like but jokey, like comes out. You know, where they're talking about the Lincoln speech that John Walker comes out with, and they have that like back and forth about, oh, you know, don't you like Lincoln speeches? And he's, well, not coming from you, and all that kind of stuff. But they're all kind of matey in that moment, because of course those two guys, more than anybody else, really understand each other, because they're both assassins, right?
How
Do you
many?
know what I mean?
How many people you think had an issue when Isaiah said they'll never let a black man be Captain America? Because I thought that kind of set up the whole emotional aspect of this series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was clearly an emotional touchdown, because that there's a reason for that to happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a reason for that to happen.
It was, you know, foreshadowing, right? Because you knew once they said that, that's exactly what they were doing. I mean,
it's absolute foreshadowing. Yeah.
I mean, we all knew that was what was happening at this show, but once he said that, you know, that was going to make the turning point for Sam harder. But it's going to happen. But to touch back on John Walker real quick, this episode really showed Wyatt Russell's acting range, because the whole fight, when you see him, he has that face twitch he was doing. It's like, you can see he's struggling with, what does he go after Carly? Does he save the people? But what does he do? Like, he's trying to figure out what the right thing to do is, and not necessarily the right thing in the what would Captain America do, but the right thing is, okay, how do I get this battle done faster without being horrible? You just see him struggling. Like, he had that. I was really impressed with his acting in this episode. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't think I'd think this on the first one, but I hope we see more of him. I hope we see more.
Me too, because the thing about Walker as well, and this is what they've carried over from the comics. It's a very subtle piece of characterization, but Cap, Steve Rogers, is an extremely smart guy who's a master tactician and strategician, right? Yep. You know, I'm making words up now. A master strategist, right? What John Walker's not that. John Walker's a weapon. You know, he's like. He's Martin Riggs. He's the guy you point. Yeah. And he's not the guy who plans where he's going to be pointed. Martin and that's Riggs. Why he's always worked with these military leaders. And clearly that's going to be his relationship with the Contessa moving forward. She's going to be, you're going to surgically do this, right? You know, so he's the lethal weapon, right? And so he can't be expected to work that shit out, because it's not his strength. His strength is getting it done. Yeah, and that's two very different things. And I think you've really seen his character struggle with that, the what the fuck of it all the way through this, this season.
Oh yeah,
great. And he's great, and you get the sense also that in the course of doing that, because he's being asked to make complex decisions, not simple ones. The simple decisions are, I'm a soldier and I'm carrying out these orders.
That's right.
That's the simple decision. But the complex decisions, he wants to be a nice guy. His natural setting is, actually, he's an amiable jock kind of character. Hence you see him talking to his wife, hence you see him being nervous about taking on the cat mantle at first. You know, and hence him being quite charming. Yeah. But he's charming like the guy who's been the captain of the football team that's always won. And his problem is, suddenly when he's on the back foot and he's in a situation where
he can't win,
he's massively struggled with that. Yeah. And then he, gets in, and he's got PTSD, and he gets injected with loads of shit. So I think they've just done him really, really well. I think he's actually been the perfect actor. I mean, I think he's the great almost surprise of this series is that he has been so good. And he's been in real life so amiable about the fact that all these morons came out saying, "Not my Captain America. I hate this guy," and giving him all that online hate, which is just about as fucking a stupid thing as I've ever heard. It's the people who, you know what a deep level fan I am, like you guys are.
Yeah.
But people who really start doing this, once you start talking about these characters like that, like you would talk about a politician, it's all right to talk about 100 reasons why Ted Cruz is such a dick, right? Because A, he is one, and B, he's a real person, right? And politicians, even if you're talking about politicians I happen to admire, right? If you've got issues with that kind of detailed real life debate, makes sense. When you're talking about characters who wear pajamas, who were created to entertain 7-year-old boys 50 years ago, you should not be going on about the people who portray the movies like you're going to fucking kill them because they don't like the fact they've been cast. You've got your priorities about life all wrong. And I say this as a man who owns 30,000 comic books, as you know. Do you know what I mean? But that level of discourse, fuck this guy, White Russell, I want to kill him. It's like, hang on, mate, you're totally fucking overreacting.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Hold on.
I know Casey had something he wanted to ask or say or something because he had his hand raised and then we bowled right over.
Overtalked him. He's on he's on Black Ops again right now. He's gone to Casey Allen.
So the thing that I didn't like about the
okay, so anyways, thing, while Casey is not go Casey.
The Isaiah Bradley thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was too perfectly wrapped up into a bow. You got the emotional consequence or not consequence. They had an emotional ending to it, but there was never any real like consequence or anybody taking responsibility for what they did to him.
I think that's a timeline, though, Casey. If you think about it, he took the super serum, so anybody who actually messed with him is most likely dead of old age. So that who are they going to? Who are they going to do?
Acknowledgement. Give him a fat check, something.
I think the thing is though
that I can agree with. Fat check.
In my head, the way I looked at it is, they've given him that statue. Ergo, they're going to give him a pardon. We just haven't seen it. Ergo, they're going to pay him out. We just haven't seen it. And the reality is that, there's 6 hours of this thing and you can't show every kind of consequence that's going on all the time. Do you know what I mean? And because the thing about Sharon's pardon plays into future plot developments, I think I kind of feel personally certain that once they put up a memorial to him, he's getting the pardon and he's getting some restoration. That's how I chose to look at that. I personally don't need to see it on the screen because I can see that those scenes would kind of somewhat slow the pace of the thing down. And even though they did a good job of doing, the Return of the King, Peter Jackson multiple ending, they had about 4 endings. To put in Isaiah Bradley, to get the detail, by the way, we've got you a pardon, here's a ton of cash as well. I think there's so much to work in. So I totally respect that viewpoint, but as a viewer, I just assumed, they've done this. And I was okay with making that leap.
They had to. They had to do something besides just a statue. Because once the statue's up, then the public...
Once the statue's up, that lad's getting a pardon, 100%.
He has to.
Because otherwise they're admitting, we committed a fucking crime and wrongly imprisoned this dude.
Johnny, you gotta use your voice, buddy. You gotta use your voice. You gotta get in there, man.
Sorry, mate.
No, you're fine. You're perfectly fine. It's funny because Johnny was like,
Sorry, it's any pause is taking them. Okay. At the lightning fast speed of
exactly.
That means
and
Johnny's talking now.
Johnny's a soft-spoken man. Johnny's a soft-spoken man already. So
sorry, I'm trying to turn up my empathy dial to 11, like Nigel St. Hubbins now. I'm trying to remember that.
Hey, you know what? I want to ask you a question.
A bit more time.
When it comes to the knighting, is it true that only people from England can be knighted?
Only people from Britain can be knighted.
Only people from Britain.
So we have the what's called the Commonwealth, which are these other countries that have the Queen as the titular head of state, right?
Like Canada.
Canada's one. Australia
Ireland.
is another, right? And New Zealand might be one. I'm not sure. There's not that many of them, but basically it used to be the whole of the British Empire. Then the empire got broken up. there's these other places where you can be made a knight of the British Empire, right? So, but if you're made a knight of the British Empire and you come from the Republic of Ireland, or you come from Canada, or you come from Australia, you can't be called Sir, whatever your name is, right? You have to be, you get it as like an order of merit instead. So a good example would be, there's a guy called Bob Geldof. He's a very famous Irish musician. He's the lead singer and main songwriter of the Boomtown Rats. And what he's really famous for is Live Aid. He's the guy who created Live Aid and, you know, kind of like all that Feed the World, Do They Know It's Christmas stuff, you know, about the Ethiopian famine. He created that, so he got knighted. But he's from Southern Ireland, not Northern Ireland, so he's not part of the UK. So he can't be called Sir Bob Geldof. He is Bob Geldof, KBE, Knight of the British Empire. That's the way it works. But if you're American, you can't be. No, I think actually, now that I'm saying this, I think anybody from any nation. No, I think it's only the Commonwealth. You come in a KBE if you're from another country. Yeah, you have to essentially be British.
Yeah, interesting. I was just so
curious. It's the second highest of those kind of awards you can get.
Yeah.
And the only where you can go higher is you can be made what's called a life peer, and that means you can be made Lord so and so, but the title doesn't pass on to your children. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a life peerage is, you know, most of the people who are called Lord something these days. And there's quite a few, like, well, it happened to Laurence Olivier, the British actor, became Sir Laurence Olivier, but he was Lord Olivier before he died. But when he died, his kids don't become lords, so
right.
It ends with him, and it's called a life peerage. And that's it's higher than a knighthood.
I don't think I'd be comfortable with a title like that.
You know what? I often thought for many years, and of course, it's completely against my kind of socialist beliefs, but I think if I ever got one of those things, just for a laugh, I would absolutely accept it. You know, just for the humour of like of people going, "What? It's never going to happen. You're Sir Andrew Summer." That would be highly amusing to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Sir.
Just because I would keep on seeing Tony Curtis and the Black Shield of Falworth in the back of my mind, or any of those old night movies from the 50s, which are woefully kind of historically inaccurate. You know.
So, to bring us back around.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. So
I just looked it up real quick. Americans can't be knighted.
They can be knighted, yeah.
They can't be called Sir, but they can be knighted.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Knighted, Bill Gates was knighted. Bloomberg was knighted. A bunch of people were knighted, but they can't be called Sir or anything. Or Dame.
But they're all. So he's Gates, KBE. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah, Knights of the British Empire. That's good to know. Perfect's got one, and I haven't. I don't know. John Horsley III for KBE now. That's going to be our new campaign. Knight John Horsley.
I'll take it.
I like it. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's get it done.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
The series has wrapped up. What did you guys take away from it, Johnny? What did you take away from this?
Well, I took away. So it ended where I thought it was going to end, as far as where I thought Sam and Bucky were going to be. Yeah. Like when I started the show, there was no surprise about. I mean, Sam was going to be Cap. And it was going to be Cap in the Falcon cap suit with the wings.
Were you surprised how well they pulled that off?
Not really. I'm surprised how comic accurate the suit was, because I didn't expect it to be that spot on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew they would nail it, because there's been not really any misses in this kind of stuff for Marvel. But so my takeaway from this is there's a lot of seeds, like Marvel does all the time, for new stuff. Like we've got Torres, who is the new Falcon, right? Who's going to be the new Falcon.
Yeah.
We got Sharon Carter is the power broker, working back in the government. We've got Isaiah Bradley's grandson, I forget his name, who becomes Patriot for the new Avengers, the Young Avengers. We've got all these seeds for things in the future that are going to be coming out that that the casual viewer wouldn't catch up on. But people like us see that and they're seeding all this stuff. We saw two more Young Avengers in this show. Torres and Bradley are both part of the Young Avengers as Falcon and Patriot, and we got Wiccan and Speed from one of them. They're building up to that, and then they've got where we got Bucky and Cap back again. We got US Agent now going. We've got all these little threads going everywhere, and obviously Zemo still is in the raft, but he's still pulling strings because his butler blew up the Fog Smashers,
which was great, by the way.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and it's just all these things are tying together, and as they always do, it leaves you honestly with more questions to get answered in future stuff than it answered in itself, because it always answers the questions that from before it, and then weaves it into more questions that go out of it. And it's done so beautifully and elegantly. It makes me want to see more and see what they're going to do next and stuff. But I know we've got to wait several, for a long time to see where these things are going to go.
Yeah. Casey, what'd you take away? Did we lose Casey?
He's off on assignment right now.
He's off.
Yeah. My takeaway is that they are going to have a ton of more stories to do with this later. They really set everything up to extend these stories out for quite a bit.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
Marvel's print money.
Marvel's printing money.
But it's all good. It's all good because I'm loving where they're going.
Sumner, what'd you take away?
I might not be as brief as Casey's. I do apologise for that in advance.
Well, that's the way I asked you.
Never. When it's ever been. I took away many things. There's some things I haven't covered off that I really liked. Some of which we've touched on before, but my kind of take on them. Come on, get focused, baby. Just hang on. Buy the Vishanti. Clear it up. Now wipe your hand across slowly, Ken.
Yeah.
Give it a bit like that. There we go. That's failing us. Hey, the ancient one delivers. Yeah, I always had faith.
What the hell, man?
So,
what the hell?
Excellent. So, one of the things that we were talking about Sam being Captain America is about how he's precisely going to be Captain America. And I was wondering all the way through the show, midway through the show, once you knew there was essentially going to be one vial of super serum left, which eventually John Walker took. And Zemo does his job, and he takes out all the other super soldiers. So there's literally the only super soldiers knocking around are the ones we know about, which is essentially Bucky and John Walker, right? And, Steve, wherever he is, and Isaiah Bradley, right? I thought, oh man, for a while I thought somehow this ended up going to accidentally into Sam and give him the super soldier edge. But what they did that I thought was beautiful is in having Wakanda come up with his Captain America armor, and in making his Captain America armor the flying Falcon version, which is, I totally love that. So he's not super powered, and that's part of his charm. And he references himself. He's not one blue-eyed and he doesn't have any super serum. But I took it as read that he does have that now Wakandan-powered flight suit, which is it's augmented, and you can see in the fights that he's using both the power of that suit and it's kind of an augmented exoskeleton. He's much bigger inside it than he was in his old Falcon suit. So that's how he's actually able to hold his own as Captain America. That Wakandan technology is really boosting. Is really kind of boosting him. And they didn't sit down and say that at any point, but I think that's very much obvious. That it's a flight suit and it's an exoskeleton, and it's got that permanent Wakandan power source as well. So it's a lot more powerful than the Falcon suit he had at the beginning of the series, or that he's had previously. And you can see him use it in the fighting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can see him, and it's the way he saves. He saves the truck with it and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, that's great, because they haven't given him the serum, because not having the serum is a fundamental part of who Sam is. Yeah. But they've created it in such a way that he's on a level playing field, so he can fight alongside Bucky and not be completely outcast on the strength front. I thought that was really good. I thought that worked really well.
Yeah.
And so that was a piece of technical business that they did that I really liked. And every time I think, oh man, how are they going to get around that loophole? They always explain it in some way, which is why I admired all the showrunners they have working for Marvel and whatnot. And then on the emotional side, we haven't really touched upon Sebastian Stan's performance in this episode. Which, again, he is, I think, with those three lead actors, and with the four lead actors actually, with Daniel Bruhl, with Anthony Mackie, with Sebastian Stan, with Wyatt Russell, you just got really four supremely talented people playing these parts. And just the level of performance that they're bringing to them far outwarrants what is on paper. Show about a bunch of superheroes, right? And Sebastian Stan's just amazing in this episode, I think. He's been amazing in every episode, but his ability to flip from being like a Clint Eastwood type, kind of man on a mission hero, you know, with a brilliant range of stirs to the camera, because he's so intense as an actor, isn't he? You know what I mean? There's so much emotion plays over that face of his, depending on the context you see it in. But when he's playing the scene with his friend, the Asian father of the guy he's killed years before, it's just so beautifully done. And he sees the girl through the window with the old guy when he's been on the date, and he kind of acknowledges them, but he doesn't go, and he's kind of done the job, but he can't be their friend anymore because he murdered his son. All of that is just brilliantly done without ever explicitly talking about any of it. But I genuinely loved the final scene in the whole thing, where you see their friendship. At the closing shot is Bucky comes up and puts his arm around Sam. They look into the sunrise, then they walk away, and Sam puts his arm around Bucky. He doesn't just slap him, he walks away with his arm around him. They walk off like that. I just thought that was beautiful. The fact that they clearly love each other so much is great. But then you see Bucky having a family for the first time since he was a kid. And, you know, Sam's family have become his family, and he's talking to the sister while the kids are hanging off his arm, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I just loved that scene. I mean, the big softy in me really loved it. That's
the real question everybody's thinking here. Are Bucky and Sam's sister going to get together? Are they going to smash?
Are they going to smash?
Oh, yeah. I think it's already happened, mate.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's already happened. You know, I don't think there's anything that Sam's been able to do to stop that one. Because, you know, let's face it, you know, kind of they're two attractive people, and, you know, he's not going to want to have sex with Sebastian Stan. I would certainly like to have sex with him. And I'm a straight man in his 50s. So, you know, it's like he's just supremely attractive. And actually, the actor who plays Sam's sister is supremely attractive as well. So, you know, I thought they were both very well cast. Yeah, what a charisma knocking around on the screen.
They did a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question for the group.
Oh, yeah. Damn it, John.
I didn't try to
all set up and you ruined it. I see how you are.
Well, it's a two-part question. One.
Oh, Jesus, you're making it worse.
Sorry. Anda?
Yeah.
Do we think those wings are vibranium?
Oh,
I think so. Yes, that's. I think no doubt because the way he anchored himself into the ground with them.
Yep.
I think that is exactly what is happening with them. I think they're definitely vibranium.
Yep.
It's the way that truck just fucking ended up bouncing off him. If they weren't vibranium, he'd just be a kind of damp, you know, just be a damp stain. It pretty much has to be, I think.
Yeah. So then, you guys think like the shield, like I feel like. The fact the vibranium, how you hit it, it hits back the same amount of force. I feel like they didn't use that aspect of the shield very much in this show. The shield was more like it was as powerful as they needed to for that scene. Like sometimes it would hit people and knock them out. Sometimes it would just bounce off of things. Sometimes it would just not be super hard. Like I feel like the whole like level of power of the shield was kind of in flux. This whole
well, the scene where the shield, the scene where the shield gets bounced away from a plastic chair.
Yeah, that one got me.
That got me. I was like, wait, that shield should obliterate that chair and keep going.
Right through it.
I think what they have a long history of doing, and this is in the comics as well, and in the MCU certainly, is people are as powerful as they need them to be in a given moment.
Yep.
And those powers can often be dialed back because, you know, it doesn't make for great drama. If you've got Superman levels of strength, it's like Cap himself. His strength levels vary wildly during the 5 or 6 movies that he's in, because suddenly he gets the Winter Soldier. I think it's the first time you see him do it, and he grabs hold of the helicopter, and it's a great scene. And he's doing maximum strength, but he's pulling the fucking helicopter down. Well, that takes a lot of effort, you know, because I've tried it, and it's not easy. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you did it, but it's not easy.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly, but that's it, and I think it's just a very, it absolutely is. What's the word? I heard Denny O'Neil say something which was brilliant. Yeah. I think you'll find that they brought their artistic license along that day. Yeah, and that's absolutely true. You know, and sometimes you go fuck it. By the way, the context of that, and we talked about this before, but Denny O'Neil was talking about the fact that suddenly, at the end of the original Batman movie, the Jack Napier Joker, the Jack Nicholson Joker, suddenly seems to know that Batman is Bruce Wayne for no apparent reason. Right. And, you know, and it's like, we were talking about this in the context of the Christopher Reeve Superman. taking off his S and turning it into a massive frisbee / parachute. It's like, what the fuck is that? You haven't even explained it. To this day, they haven't explained it.
That plastic
and
thing.
The Denny O'Neil thing is, I think you'll find they were using their artistic license at that point. And
that's great.
That's what that is. I think you just have to go, fuck it. I'm not going to worry about it bouncing off the chair. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But the thing is, if they were totally consistent all the time, it can get in the way of the drama. And ultimately, the drama is what's the most important thing, right?
Right.
Rather than the Marvel handbook style, Tom Brevoort letter of like absolute detail about, well, it says here that his powers are this, and you've just exceeded them, or you've just gone way under that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's another thing I wanted to mention about the finale is the piece of music they close out on. That's a song called On and On by Curtis Harding. I know it sounds like a classic tune. It was only released in 2017. And he is an amazing talent, Curtis Harding. And if anybody listening to this really like that piece of music, I would really recommend the album it's on. And it's on a fucking phenomenal album called Face Your Fear, right? And at one point, Curtis Harding used to be a backing singer for like CeeLo Green, right? But he's released 2 albums. Face Your Fear is the second one. But it's all this beautiful retro-sounding soul music. And because that sounds like it should be a Curtis Mayfield song from like 1973 or something.
Yeah.
It was only created 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that song is called On and On, and it's on Face Your Fear, which you'll find on Spotify. And it is a phenomenal feel-good album. It's absolutely brilliant.
There you go.
Nice.
Casey, do you have anything to wrap up on?
Yeah. Actually, you guys were talking about the new costume. And one thing I want to bring that back around to is there's such a power imbalance with a U.S. agent that has the super serum and a Captain America that could ostensibly, just get whacked one day.
Yeah.
As soon as they gave him, the parting gift, the Dora Milaje or whatever, it was kind of evident, like, oh yeah, he's getting a power up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely right. That it's definitely an exoskeleton. Yeah, there's definitely an exoskeleton in addition to it just being the flight suit. You can just see because it's all bulked out around him. It's instantly given Anthony Mackie, who's muscular and super fit, but essentially a slender man. Yeah, it's given him much more of that built out like Chris Evans physique inside the actual suit. Right, he looks bigger. Yeah. He's an incredibly fit, muscular guy. He's got quite a slender neck. He's not naturally big and brutish. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that Chris Evans ever was either. He can't. But they've definitely augmented him. In the Captain America costume, and I think I think it's a really deliberate thing, actually, Casey, for that reason. Because otherwise, he'd just be getting taken out left, right, and centre by all these superpowered jerks who are still knocking around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Casey is so funny. His mobile camera, and it's like moving all over the place, and so it looks like Casey's like in space, and he's doing all this crazy stuff.
Well, it's like you're in space, but you're dancing in space. That's exactly it. That's right.
Oh man.
Oh right. Oh, there you go.
All right.
Oh, guys, are we going to talk about what we're going to do next week?
We are. I was just getting to it.
Well, you're the host, Kenric. Sorry, mate.
We're wrapping this up. I hope everybody enjoyed our series of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Up next for Make My Marvel TV will, of course, be the Loki show, which comes out in
June.
That's right. But in the meantime, I love that mug. I want one of those mugs, Sumner.
Mug.
I think
there's only a handful of them. I'll try and get you one of a can.
Oh well.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna have to get 3 if you can, because if you can't get it for all 3, then don't get it for any of us.
Don't get it at all. Yeah,
yeah,
got it.
But in the meantime, between now and I think actually next week, is there going to be an assembled for?
Now that's an excellent question. I haven't seen them announce that yet.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye out, and if there is an assembled, we'll do an episode on the assembled. But between now and between Loki, we have a set of movies, and if people didn't know, Sumner used to host his own TV show over across the pond. I don't like that saying anymore, across the pond, because I think so many people use it.
Yeah.
Across the big. across the big
on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Do you know what I mean?
The great expanse.
And yes, there is an assembled for this coming out.
Nice. So we'll do an assembled, and then we'll do
brilliant.
So people who didn't know, Sumner had his own TV show where he was on. Is it Classic Turner?
TCM, yeah, TCM
Turner
Europe,
Classic
not
Movies.
TCM USA.
And he would introduce movies and give his thoughts at the beginning and then during commercial breaks and stuff. It was really brilliant. It was a lot of fun. And we're going to kind of do that. He's going to suggest some movies for myself and Johnny and Casey to watch, and then we're going to talk about them. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun because it's going to be ones a little bit more. Actually, all the ones that you set up, I've already seen because I used to run a video store. So there's not a lot.
I'm that's good that you're so well viewed. What I've realized is, I'm going to the list we originally talked about. I'm going to amend slightly, because I'm going to try and put at least one gem that you haven't seen, Kenric. So I want to try and come to at least two that you've probably not seen.
Yeah. So we're going to have some classic movies, maybe not so classic, and then other ones that are definitely classic. And we're going to talk about them and kind of go through, and hopefully through us, you learn some new movies out there that you should probably go and check out. And two, if you've already seen them, you'll get a different viewpoint of what we think of them.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a ton of fun. Yeah. You know what? There's one movie out there that I would suggest anybody to go see. It's a weird one. It's an Italian film from the 1960s. It's called The 10th Victim.
Not Mortal Kombat?
No. If you haven't seen it,
okay.
It is wildly above its time. The special effects and all that kind of stuff are of its time, big time. But the concept is way above its time. And a lot of movies have for lack of a better term, ripped it off because they can. And it's really cool. It's called The 10th Victim. You can watch it free right now on Tubi, TUBI.
Nice.
Love it.
That's all we have for today. Anybody have anything they want to say before we head out?
No, just thanks for making this such a fun process, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right,
I really enjoyed it.
We're gonna play our little intro, and then I'm gonna hit stop.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you back here for talking about Assembled in a week's time, I think.
I'm looking forward to it, guys.
Greetings, true believers. It's time for Spoiler Country's Make My Marvel TV, live from the Smith Tower high over Seattle, with your hosts, John, Kenric, Sumner, and Casey. Welcome to Make My Marvel TV.